and Nettie. Hello, Tanya. How are you?
I'm excellent, Nettie. How are you?
Yeah, really good. We're into series three, the hashtag word from spirit. So this week, our hashtag is victim mentality. So I was like, what the? Okay, let's go with it. I did study this
That's
a
how
little
you
bit.
felt with the last one.
I know. These surprises. I'm like, I did study this a little bit in psychology back in uni. I'm going to say 10 years ago, but it's probably 25 years ago. Just showing my age.
Let's pretend
um,
it's 10.
yes, but this is one that you sent through to me. So I'm wondering whether Spirit actually gave you some information at the same time so we can get into it.
So victim mentality, and they didn't, I know what victim mentality is, and it's basically a person that's basically going through life thinking that life is against them all the time. And I'll see it a lot of times, sometimes with what I'm trying to think of what a good example would be is it, it's
It's even like when it can be quite big, like when we had the floods, people like, why does this happen to me? Well, it happened to everyone actually. But
yeah,
and there was no curse on you to make this happen to you. It just happens, like it's nature. Or,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, and then to take that further, that person, for the next 5 years of their life is like, oh well, we had those floods, and it caused a problem with my foot, and now I can't work. Or those floods, now this happened, and now I can't do that. And it's basically a way for people to be stuck in a problem and not aim towards a solution, not grow. So I think that's what Spirit was wanting to get at, is just when you're in a victim mentality, and that's a really hard thing for people to realize that they're in, because who wants to believe that they're in a victim mentality, right? But if you're taking offense to things all the time, and you're thinking people are being mean to you all the time, and because people aren't, like, the reality is that people are so focused in their own damn world. But if you're always feeling like people are against you, I'm going to suggest you're probably in a bit of a victim mentality.
Yeah. And it's actually in many ways going towards the negative rather than to the positive when a situation
Yeah.
happens. And maybe that's a solution that is a way to start coming out of it. So when something happens, and even if you do think you're a victim in it, stop to say, what are the positives that are actually, like, having an argument with someone? It's like, what do we learn from this argument, rather than who, like, well, we did hashtag blame game, right?
Blame game.
Yeah, like it's blaming someone. Victim mentality is blaming someone else or a situation for what happens to yourself, and always thinking that you're the one poor me, this is happening to me, why does this happen to me? And if you start to look at it and go, okay, that clash happened or that thing happened, what's the positive that came from that? Like, what am I going to
Mm-hmm.
walk away with?
Mm-hmm.
Is probably a good way to start to see whether you can move out of it, because you don't want to be the victim. You don't want to play the victim all the time.
Exactly. But I think that there's a definite space and place for you do get hit with the floods. You are a victim of the
Yeah.
floods. And your ankle did get hurt, and it did affect your income, or it did affect all of these things. 100% own it. This sucks. Why did this happen to me? But don't stay stuck there, to
Yeah. I
me,
think
is
that's being a
really,
victim rather than victim
that's
mentality. Like, yeah.
exactly, you're a legit victim. But when you let that hold you back and you continue to woe be me for the next 5 years, you're in a victim mentality.
That's interesting, actually, because it does throw the other side of not playing the victim mentality to the reverse. So if we take the example of the floods, which is interesting, it came up, there was a lot of people who wouldn't, because I spent a lot of time doing stuff from a helping role, they wouldn't accept the help because they said someone is worse than I am. And so they were like, oh no, but my neighbor, this and this. And there was one gentleman, he was like 95 or something, and his whole place had been destroyed, and he had a single story place, and he lost his car, he lost everything. And he was like, oh, surely there's someone, I'd rather give it to someone who's worse off than me. Like, I'm like,
Dude, you're 95.
no,
What the
mate,
hell?
you're the end of the line. It's just like, it's just like, you've had a lot of shit thrown at you. Yes, you're highly resilient, blah, blah, blah. But give yourself that comfort to actually say, okay, I appreciate this. People want to help me and I'm going to take it on board. So he was the opposite. He lived with such a beautiful, positive outlook that he didn't take it as the world's against me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this happened to a lot of people. He could see the bigger picture in it. And that was really common through. And we'd have to get these people eventually to become the victim, like actually accept that they have had a lot of shit that's gone on. And,
Right.
I mean, we were flooded, not my house, my business was flooded. And I spent ages not taking any assistance because I could see people. So I was doing that myself. I was looking on the positive side that our house wasn't flooded. So this is awesome. Like I'm in a really good spot.
Right.
But the next 3 months, my husband spent rebuilding our property, so that he could work again. And that's our income comes from that. So, you look at that kind of that shoes and you understand it. And then we would have other people in the floods that had their holiday house in there that was 2-story and only went through the bottom. And they lived in a nice house somewhere else and they had, all this money and stuff. And they were like, I've been severely done by, my house is destroyed and blah, 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 blah. And you're just like, hey, victim mentality. Like, it was just like, come on. Like, you don't need these vouchers for a new mattress because your mattress is upstairs and it's fine. And you've got one that you're sleeping on. The people next door are on the floor in a damp, wet floor. Like, come on, guys. And so you did see that real different thing where people actually who play the victim all the time, even if they didn't know it, they were, putting their hand out going, someone needs to help me, like, so self-focused, I think.
I remember a friend of mine and I, there was this group of ladies, and there was this one in particular that would always kind of, oh, this is happening and that's happening. And she'd have all these women flocking towards her and taking care of her and buying her groceries and helping her out and doing all of these things. And my girlfriend and I, who were both fairly strong people, would sit back and go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, do I need to be like a wounded duck with a broken wing in order to get some support here? Like, what's going on? But that's kind of it, is that, like, where you're not standing on your own foundation and you're just licking your wounds, essentially. But there's some great advice that was given to me once, and I refer to it a lot. It was just a time in my life. My son was little. I was working full time. I had no support, no family support. And it was really hard. I didn't have a lot of money, and, things have definitely turned around now, but it was a very, very, very difficult time in my life. And I remember sitting at coffee with one of my friends, and she said to me, she goes, the best piece of advice I ever got was this. And I go, okay. She goes, you're telling me about your situation. She's like, and I hear you. She goes, but what if this is as good as it gets? And I was like, fucking better not be. this better get better. She's like, no, but hold on, seriously. What if this is as good as it gets? What would you do? And it made me, this was such a profound piece of advice. It made me sit back and go, okay, if this is my life and if this is as good as it's ever going to get, I got to change my perspective. And I've got to start seeing this as a gift in some way. I've got to start seeing this as a growth opportunity. I need to start having fun and playing, even though things are hard, and getting out and enjoying life, even though things are
not
hard.
dwelling on the hard part.
Yeah. And so it was kind of like learning to dance in the rain. Life's hard, but you can have fun and make it work anyways. Because sometimes when we're in the rain, we get wet, right, Nettie?
Yeah, we do. And I hear what you're saying too. And I think it's interesting to understand how victim mentality starts, right? So that was a change of perspective that someone's given you, and you can say, okay, you can dwell on that, the situation that you're in, or you can look for all the positives in that situation and say,
And
what
make the
can I get
best
out
of
of
it.
this, and make the best of it. That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wonder whether what those people are, and the example that you gave with that girl who was asking, you know, had the flock around her, whether they actually just needed love, and somewhere down the track that the way that they got that was to say, I fell over, I hurt my knee, oh, poor me.
Probably.
And then it stemmed from there. And it's like, if you've got a friend or someone that you've still spend time with, or a sister, or a whatever it is, that actually has suffers from victim mentality, maybe one of the ways of helping them get out of that is showing them love when they're not like
Having
screaming.
to, that is
Yeah,
such a good
to
point, because that
dramatize it.
something like that would easily happen as children if, you know, you had neglectful parents and the only time that they paid attention to you was when you were sick or you hurt yourself or something like that. Then you, in order to, you know, receive love and affection, you actually feel like you have to be hurt or down in the dumps in order to
Yeah.
get that love, care, and attention, because unless you're suffering, nobody's
Yeah.
going to come.
Yeah, and I was actually reflecting on something similar to this the other day, and I wasn't really thinking it from victim mentality, but it falls well into it. And you know, people say to me, like, I'm in a good position in my life. I have a beautiful family. I'm financially very stable, and I love my life. I mean, I've got this beautiful podcast with Tanya. I've got some lovely friends. I've got all these things. And people say to me, yeah, it's really lovely. Like, you were born into a beautiful family and you've just been lucky your whole life. And I'm like, yeah, I have. But then I actually started to go through the things that have happened to me in my life. You know, I had a stroke. My husband got severely sick for ages, that we thought he was, you know, not going to be okay. I lost a baby. I went through floods. I've been through fires. I've actually had a lot of things that have actually happened to me, but I've never seen myself as a victim in any of them. And so therefore I don't talk about them in like, I've had to get through this. I've had to get through this. And, you know, I nearly died when my son was born. You know, there's a lot of things that happened that when I look back at them and someone's telling me a story of what's happened in their life, I'm like, oh, the poor thing, like, that's so awful. And I reflect back and I
And then
go,
you're
oh,
like, wait a
shit.
minute.
Yeah. But I think maybe we've hit the answer for me is that I was brought up in a very, very, very loving family. And so I never felt to seek love through anything but being who I was. And
Mhm.
when things did happen, my beautiful mum and dad, and brothers and sisters would all say, you know, let's look at what we get good out of this. And gee, we're lucky that, yes, you know, we crashed the car or whatever happened. We're lucky we're still alive. You know, it's not like, oh, why did my car crash? Why did this happen? It's like, all right, now we put in positive things to find a way to get ourselves to school or do whatever we need to do and not have it a blip. So we became solution based and started to look at the positives. And so I've always wondered why, you know, I always think nothing bad has happened in my life, but actually I've had a shitload of bad happen, you know,
But
but
you've had a significant social structure around you to
yes,
support you and hold you up. And so that was that was for me what was so challenging in that time of my life is I was alone.
yeah,
And I didn't have family showing up to cook me dinner. I didn't have somebody, you know, coming and taking care of my son. I did not have support. So I think you hit on something very key there, is that the support piece also is extremely important.
yeah, and the pattern of someone showing you how to live in the
Yeah.
right in that way. And so that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that anyone that's in that situation opposite to me is going to become victim mentality, but it means that some of them may. And if you stem back to see where there was, maybe the fact that they've got this is there's an underlying issue back at the start that they
Yeah.
don't mean to be this victim. In fact, they don't even know that they're doing it because they've been doing it so long. And so, you know, as a society, if we can look at that and rather just go, oh my God, you know,
there she goes
you're so
again.
annoying. I mean, it gets to the point where you
Yeah.
just have to get away from people sometimes because you know you can't change them. I get told all the time, you can't save the whole world, so just choose your battles. You know, but and you're not always right. So don't try and change someone that, you know, doesn't have the same point of view as you. But I think it's also really crucial to look at that and say, hey, maybe I can give them support or give them love or give them those things when they're not being a
Get
victim.
ahead of it as opposed
Yeah.
to when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And help support them in that way. And then, and, you know, self-reflective when we do become the victim ourselves, you know, and I'm not saying that I never do victim mentality, because when I think about it, there's times where everything just gets too much and you become the victim and you sort of do that pattern, but it's not in a way that it's undeserving. I think victim mentality is when it's like dramatized to the point of, come on.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Out of
Because
perspective.
I think that it's very normal if you're a victim of something to acknowledge that. Oh my gosh, I
It's
was
important
wronged.
to. Yeah.
100% feel all
Yeah.
the feels, but it's when it carries on and you use it almost like it's excuses for your life, or you just sit and dwell on it and don't do anything about it. Like, oh, here's an example. I had somebody that I lent money to, and they didn't pay me back and they won't talk to me. And so I was like, okay, well, I can sit here and be like, this person's such a jerk, this person, that, da, da, da. Guess what I did? I took them to civil court.
Yeah.
Because you do something about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you, I don't know why I keep saying hurting your ankle in the flood, but you know, if you hurt your ankle in the flood, you can complain about the flood, right? You can complain about I'm talking to somebody specifically. I don't know who, but there's somebody. You can complain about it for the next 10 years about how you can't work because you hurt your ankle in the flood. Or you can go to physio and you can do stretches and you can walk and you can do all of these things to get your life back on track. Like I've struggled with depression before in my life, which I actually believe was like undiagnosed ADHD, but I didn't take it laying down. I've taken nothing laying down in my life, right? Like a lot of people would have crumbled for a lot of the stuff that I've gone through, but
Yeah.
I keep getting back up and come up with a solution. What can I do about this? And you get action oriented. Victim is just sitting back and feeling sorry for yourself because this person is doing these things to me and
Yeah.
not doing anything about it and just sinking into the ground.
And not mirroring. So not looking outside of your own inner perspective. It's like, oh, this poor me, blah, 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 without actually looking, you know, there are times when you need to look out the window and say, hang on, what's happened to my neighbor? What's happened to the person down there? What situation am I really in comparison to other people? What help is around? What sort of stuff is there, rather than, you know, like I'm the most, you know, seriously, the one who cried the hardest was the one who was least impacted in the floods. And then got people to do stuff and never paid them. And so, you know, owed 10, 20,000 to people who had also, their house had been flooded too, but they're trying to earn a living and help rebuild others. And then these people don't pay. And constantly you hear standing up at meetings that we had for the floods with the council and the government, and then telling them how badly they've been done by in this whole thing. And you're just like, that's 100% victim mentality. It's like, it's going to get you nowhere. It's
it might
blinded.
get you somewhere in the meeting. It might get the people crowding around you to meet that need in that moment. It might get you not working for the next 5 years and getting money from somewhere else, but it isn't going to get you growing as a human being.
No.
It's going to keep you stuck and unaligned. You are not aligned when you are in victim mentality.
Yeah. And also we talked a lot about, you know, the human connection and that we are meant to be connected with each other. And one of the things that victim mentality does is it slowly separates you from everyone. Like it's a dishonesty to yourself. And so therefore it becomes a dishonesty to other people, and trust and all that just gets disconnect, you know, sort of disconnects you from the world. So to be actually able to grow and to become a happy and positive person doesn't belong in victim mentality. So, you know, you have to break out of it to really become a better person and do it. And everyone can have everything, I think, is scale, right? So you might find you're on this in a tiny bit and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to pick that up now before that comes a habit. Or if you see a child doing that where they get, you know, your daughter or niece or whatever, and it falls over and it's watches for the drama and then cries, you know, like who's around, start to go, okay, well, this behavior could actually move into something like this. It's something we can pick up and help them at that early stage rather than going too far.
Well, yeah. I mean, we all naturally need that connection and that support and that community and those people around you. And the reality is if you're not getting it, you're probably going to ask for it in ugly ways.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, true.
It's
yeah.
just going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the perspective really that Spirit's talking about is because really our big theme is realignment. And you're not going to be realigned if you're just going to sit and complain about life. And I don't believe in false positivity. I don't believe in always seeing a silver lining. Like sometimes I think that you can be like, hey, this situation completely sucks. And I'm not okay with it. And we're not like expected to spread like, we can hate something and not be stuck in victim mode.
Yeah.
So you know what
absolutely.
I mean? Like it doesn't it doesn't, because we're not asking or suggesting false positivity where it's oh yeah, so you know my house burned down but it's okay, we're okay.
We love tent sleeping.
Yeah, it's great, this is wonderful. We don't have to do that either.
So hashtag victim and hashtag victim mentality are two different things.
You know? Got it.
Yeah.
You got it. So with that said, my lovely Nettie, it was great chatting with you today, and keep yourselves out of victim mentality and always check your life. Always check your life to see where you're being a victim to it. And hopefully that'll help with your realignment. We will see you all soon. Oh, do you have hashtag homework?
Oh, well, there, you just gave the hashtag homework, didn't you? So hashtag homework is to, reflect on your own spot and see whether you're in life and see whether there are stages where you could, or where you can see someone else that might be suffering from mentality. This. Yeah, and see whether you can do one little thing to help them, you know, be either slowly move out of it. Yeah.
Be more empowered, because I would say the opposite of victim mentality is empowerment.
Yeah. Beautiful.